Welcome. It's episode 149 of Grow Yourself Up. And today I am joined by author and psychologist Suzy Reading. So let me just tell you a bit about Suzy, and then I'll tell you about our conversation. So Suzy Reading is a chartered psychologist and one of the UK's leading self-care and self-advocacy experts. She has 3 decades of experience in health and wellbeing industry, drawing on her qualifications in yoga and personal training together with psychology to empower people with sustainable, healthy lifestyle habits. Suzy has a special interest in helping people heal their relationship with self. She is a monthly columnist for top Sante Magazine, the psychology expert for Neom Organics, the Wellbeing Ambassador for BABTAC, and is a founding member of the Nourish app. She is the author of The Little Book of Self-Care, The Self-Care Revolution, Stand Tall Like a Mountain, Self-Care for Tough Times. This book will help make you happy and breathe, sit to get fit, rest to reset, and self-care for winter. And How to Be Selfish is going to be published shortly on the 20th of November. So in this conversation, we talk about Suzy's, her own journey of developing self-advocacy and how this is a journey of a lifetime, actually. We talk about self-care for winter. So I'm always interested. I grew up in the Southern Hemisphere. And so the winters in the UK, in London, where I live, are radically different to the winters I used to have. I grew up in Johannesburg in South Africa. And there, it's very beautiful. It's like the sky is so high and it's blue and there's sun in the winter, even though it's cold. And I find the winters really different in the UK. And so I love hearing from other people who grew up in the Southern Hemisphere about how they like really embrace winter. So Suzy's got a beautiful book called Self-Care for Winter. And she talks about that and gives some tips from that. And then we went into her new book, How to Be Selfish, which is all about self-advocacy. And Suzy makes the point that those of us who most need to be selfish are those who are the least likely to actually be selfish. And she talks about how she defines selfishness and why it's so important to really kind of hold that in mind as you learn to tend to yourself. So I hope that you find this really nourishing and joyful. And let's dive in. Hi, Suzy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. So delighted to have you.
Thank you, Cath. It's always a joy to be in your company, darling.
Thank you. So just for the listeners, we're going to be talking about a couple of Suzy's books today, because I think they're really going to resonate with the audience and they'll really help people to nourish themselves. And that's what a lot of us need in adult life. And I'm always interested in this because you are a fellow person from the Southern Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we just dive straight into your like most recently published book called Self-Care for Winter.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us, as a fellow Southern Hemisphere person, how have you kind of made peace with winter, welcomed it in, learned to love it? Because it's kind of a big change to shift from a hot Christmas to a cold Christmas.
It is a big change. And do you know what? There's part of that experience that makes the wintry joys here in the UK something so exciting. You know, I feel like my Antipodean eyes allow me to see winter in a really different way. You know, there are things that I absolutely relish, like, you know, even something as simple as seeing the plume of your breath on those really crisp mornings, or the frost, the fractal patterns of frost that transform even a garbage bin into what could be seen as an exquisite work of art. You know, I'm just constantly amazed by nature's beauty. However, can we also acknowledge the very real challenge that the lack of daylight and the cold temperatures have on our body minds? So I wanted to bring to market a beautiful little book. Can you see the stars are embossed?
I can see. It's really beautiful.
Sparkle. I wanted to bring something that would switch things up from winter dread, which I think a lot of us feel. There's this sense of, oh my God, summer's over, all the fun is done. But that winter dread, all it does is it trains our eyes to see all of the things that we don't enjoy. So I wanted to switch it up and create a little bit of gentle anticipation for some of the joys unique to winter. And it's not just natural beauty. It's also, you know, getting all the cozy, chunky knits on and the candles and the scents and that sort of thing. There's a lot to savor while also acknowledging the challenges and coming up with some antidotes to the winter blues.
Yes. It's really both and, isn't it?
It is.
Because one of the things I actually love about this country is the seasons. Because I grew up in Johannesburg, and it did have nice seasons, but the winter was always beautiful sunlight. And so here, it is just such a shocker to have a grey sky that's so heavy.
Yes.
And some of what you talk about in your book is basically the beautiful colors, like even the colors of the book, and how you can create warmth within your home and kind of lights and everything.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about some of your favorite like rituals from the book and how you kind of really savor the time?
Yes. I think just to sort of set the scene here, the rituals in the book are largely around how we can honor the deep desire to hibernate and to comfort ourselves, but without that having to be another mug of hot chocolate. Now, I'm not saying don't drink hot chocolate. I am saying we just need a broader toolkit. So if I can just sort of set the scene with just some gentle guidelines for how to honor the impulse to hibernate, but while still tending to ourselves, so that there's a feeling of zest. Because the fact is, as human beings, we can't just hibernate like the brown bear.
No.
It's not possible. Modern life,
and especially
doesn't
not
allow
as
us
mothers.
to. Exactly. And you know what? Part of this, the research for the book that I found so interesting was looking from a scientific perspective as to how we're impacted by the lack of light and warmth. And even simple things like, I don't think most people realize this, but actually we need more sleep in winter. We actually need more sleep. We need more sleep, yes. There was research that looked at a community that didn't have access to natural light. When they had access to artificial light, when they were given access to artificial light, they got less sleep than those that didn't have access to artificial light. So the fact is, our access to artificial light has changed our sleep patterns. So we just expect ourselves to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed all year round. But the fact is, our sleep patterns, our rest patterns, would normally shift with the changing environmental cues. And why would we be any different? Look at how the plant and animal world respond to the natural cues that they're embedded in, and yet we expect ourselves to be immune. So that's part of the challenge. So these broad principles, it's, can we hibernate without stagnating? So yes, let's enjoy our cozy comforts. It's fine if you don't want to go out of an evening, but we still need access to daylight and we still need to move our bodies. Okay, so hibernate, don't stagnate. Yes, to comforting yourself. We absolutely crave that comfort when it's cold and dark outside, because that's, let's be honest, it can be pretty aversive. So we do need more comfort, but can that comfort take the forms of other things and not just what we eat and what we drink all the time? Yes, there's comfort there, but can we also use, you mentioned before, can we dress ourselves in bright colours? Can we choose fabrics and textures that are soothing to the touch? Candles, scent, all of these things, touch. And then we'll do a little practice in a minute, Cath, if that's all right.
Oh, how
we'll bring
lovely.
all of that together. But so hibernate without stagnating, comfort ourselves without self-sabotage, and can we retreat without isolating ourselves? That's the other big one. Because look, we've sort of already got to that time of year where I'm thinking, if anyone asks me if I fancy going out of an evening, my response is likely to be yes, but not until about probably April of next year.
Yes.
just rather not. So how can we honor that desire to retreat but still stay connected? Yeah. So this is like, okay, so I'm going to go for brunches and I'll go for walks with friends instead during daylight hours. It's like, let's tweak it. It's okay for social mojo to change, but what can we do to make sure that we're still feeling current and connected and, that beautiful sense of belonging that we need for our souls?
Yeah, exactly. And to really manage our mental health, because I think if we think about it from a nervous system point of view, just looking at, if we do too much hibernating, we can actually then go into kind of a dorsal place of real shutdown and then not be able to, then in those places, we're much more likely to just stuff our faces all day with chocolate and all that sort of thing. So, and then we can even more, then it kind of, like some suppression can just happen purely because of our physiological state.
And it's a bit of a downward spiral, isn't it, Cath?
Yes,
Yes,
exactly. And I love that thing about just even going outside when it's really grey, like even because it's only light at like 7:45 when it's in the depth of winter. But even that light, and I think you talked quite a lot about this, about even though the quality of light is different, we still need it.
We still need it. Absolutely. That daylight is absolutely essential for our circadian rhythms. So we actually need the daylight to enter our eyes for it to regulate our circadian rhythms. So we need that dose. Whether we're rugged up, to the eyeballs, just make sure that you can see the sun, the light to enter the eye. But should we do a little practice, Cath?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Okay. So if we think about what does the cold do to our physicality? What does it do to our posture? When we're cold, what do?
It attracts us.
We retreat into ourselves. We curl into ourselves, which is very similar to the iPhone slump. Yeah? Now, the issue there is when we come into that round spine, downcast gaze position, research shows that in itself lowers mood, lowers our energy level, makes it easier to recall negative memories. And when someone's in that shape, it's easier to make them cry.
Yes.
So we need to break free from this winter slump. So the practice that I would love everyone to do is it's a breathing practice. And we all know that when we breathe better, we feel better. But this particular practice is also, it's using movement. And we know that movement is a potent antidepressant. And for people that are thinking, I can't get out in it. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Okay, that's fine. Can you do some stretches at home? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so this ritual will hit the spot. Okay, looks like this. We take a deep breath in and we stretch our arms out like albatross wings. And then as you exhale, give yourself a hug. Let your spine round a little here, stretch the upper back, and then breathe in, reach the arms out again, open the chest, and then exhale, take the other arm on top and give yourself another hug. And then just let's do one more each side. Breathing in, you're drawing in light and life, and then hug yourself, extend a little love and compassion towards yourself. And one last one. There we go. Yeah, did that feel good?
Yeah, it really does feel good because I think that I love that self-hug. That posture that you were doing is also a posture of shame.
It is. It's the no posture, isn't it? It's like, oh, get me out of here.
Yeah. When we kind of go into that collapse state. And so it's so powerful to notice, to hear. I didn't know what you said about it's easier to make someone cry in that state. And so that's fascinating that this kind of contraction and rolling in is much more likely to make us feel worse.
There's a time for it. It's not. This is not about saying all day, every day we should be up and out here, but it's about using our posture to think about what's required of you and what kind of posture is going to help you meet the demands that you're about to face. So if I'm about to have an important phone call or a difficult conversation or even send a tricky email, I want to come into a yes posture. If I want to pave the way for sleep, I don't want to be out here.
Yeah, exactly. Then you want to be down.
There is a time for turning inwards, but it's really interesting. We don't want to spend all day here. That doesn't feel good. So it's just knowing how and when and what we can do to create these little subtle shifts.
Yes, exactly. I think that's so powerful. I know for my kids, so regardless of the weather, we have to go out kind of twice a day. Even if one of them is a rainy walk with our rain hoods on and just 20 minutes around the block or something. And it makes the most incredible difference to reset us and to kind of invigorate us, get color in our cheeks. And we can't, I'm always like, we have to get out because otherwise in our family, it all just goes to hell, basically, if we don't do that movement. And how do you personally, I struggle with the darker evenings, and I also want to hibernate. I want to now just sit on my sofa with my heat pad until March, basically.
Mm-hmm.
what do you do for yourself? Like, how do you kind of run your day so that you can give yourself the time to get extra sleep and not kind of go into collapse and seasonal depression?
So it's just striking that balance between an opportunity to flop and drop. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite rituals throughout winter is I have a really big weighted blanket, and I love snuggling underneath that weighted blanket with both of my kids. And we finish the day like that. But before that, I'll either go for a walk in the morning to get my daylight, and I try and structure my day around safeguarding that little bit of daylight in the morning. I tend to also call my mum in Australia. So I go for a walk. I say, I'm taking mum for a walk. We're going for a walk. We have a little chat. There's that soul
how
food of
lovely.
connection.
Yeah.
If that hasn't happened, then I will make sure that one of my kids will come with me. Quite often, both of them will. We go for a little, we call it our nocturnal walk. And we go and see if we can see some of the local foxes. Because it's just always something to see. Or on a clear evening, we do some stargazing. We look at the moon. If it's a full moon, we're definitely out. We love going to see the full moon. And yes, it's dark, but there's still light. So it's about getting creative with, we haven't had a huge dose of sunlight today, but can we take in the stars? Can we let the moon take center stage? Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful because actually, I haven't really been out. I was sick on the weekend, and so this weekend it just passed. And last night at about 7:30, I was like, I really need to go and move myself around a bit because I've been like a sloth basically the whole weekend. And I just went out for 20 minutes and it was still drizzling a bit, but it was really lovely. And I felt so invigorated just from, I do some quite aggressive marching. I mean, like pounding my arms. I'm not a runner really. And it made me feel so much better, so much more invigorated, so much kind of lighter, so much more possibility in my thoughts.
Yes.
And yeah, I really want the listeners, especially anyone who's had trauma in their background. It can be so hard to keep on consistently taking action that supports us. And so I really want you to kind of hold on to that. Now, Suzy, tell us something from a more personal point of view. What made you come over from Australia and stay here?
Oh, okay. So there are two occasions that I need to explain. So I've had two stints in this country. The first time I moved here by accident. I was meant to come for a 2-month holiday.
Oh, wow.
And I stayed for 7 years. I mean, I just finished my master's degree and I missed out on a management consultancy role. I got down to the last 2 and I didn't get it. And I interviewed for 6 months for that job. And Mum said, go for a holiday, go and see your brothers who were living here at the time. So I did, and I loved it here. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going back in a hurry. So I stayed for 7 years, but we went back to Australia. I met my husband here. We went back to Australia to start a family where I thought he would fall in love with the country and we'd be there forever. That turned into 5 years because my father-in-law was in end-stage heart failure, and having had the last chapter with my dad in Sydney, I didn't want my husband to miss out on time with his father. So we ended up moving back here again. That was 11 years ago. So we've been back for 11 years already. Yeah.
Wow, Suzy. And so you actually moved when you already had children?
Yes. So Charlotte was 3 and I was actually pregnant with Ted when we moved back here. I was 12 weeks pregnant with Ted when we moved back.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a huge thing.
It was big. It was big, but it was purposeful. I knew that at the time, my mum was planning to move here as well. So it was like, no one loses out. We were coming back to be closer to my parents-in-law and good career opportunities here. My mum has ended up staying in Sydney, which has been, that's hard. And
that's really hard.
There's always a making peace, but we speak to each other every day. We're very well connected, and even though we might not live in the same place, she's still a huge part of my life and my children's lives, and it's a beautiful thing. But this is life, Cath, isn't it? We respond as best we can in the moment, and even purposeful things, there can be, it's never clear cut. There can be a grieving involved.
Yeah. So much grieving. I don't think we talk about how in life there is just so many layers of grief.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like there's death, but there's just everything else as well, which just comes with, I'm always struck in motherhood how many layers of grief there are, how many kind of having children. I feel so honored and grateful to have children. And there's also grief in that.
Yes. The constant process of letting go. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, let me get back on my track. And just tell us, how do you bring in joy and ease for yourself? Like you talked about brunches. How do you kind of let yourself have ease? And, because I think there's that analogy, your beautiful practice is like it. Many of us think we have to be like this, like an open flower all the time. And actually we need to do that shutting down and be like a closed flower. And I always think to myself, I say to my one friend, it's my time to close, like I need to close my flower at night.
Yeah.
How do you like honor that and hold those two together?
I love this question. And it just makes me so deep down, spine-tinglingly happy that you are asking me about my pleasure, about my ease, about my joy. Hallelujah. Yeah?
Yes,
this is really
exactly.
important to me. This is really important to me because we're reared in a culture that tells us we must service the needs of others. We've got to be self-reliant. We've got to be productive. We've got to be resilient. And to a certain extent, I'm wondering how many women, if not all women, are wandering about thinking that their pleasure doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That their rest is superfluous, right?
Exactly.
I want everyone to know that pleasure is not a nice to have.
No.
It's a necessary, right? Yeah. We need pleasure to shift us out of the stress response so that we can heal. We need pleasure to move us towards rest and digest so that we can sleep, so that we can empathize with other human beings. It's not just a superfluous, wouldn't it be nice if we had a little moment to ourselves? It's essential. So thank you for asking me that, Cath. And was there something you wanted to add as well?
No, I wanted to know, because I think also the pleasure, often pleasure is correlated. People think about pleasure and sex, but actually there's a whole range of pleasure that goes from sex into there's for me, it's pleasurable to have a hot cup of tea. It's pleasurable to lie on my heat pad and feel it warming my back. It's pleasurable to read a nice book. It's pleasurable to hug my husband actually and feel him breathing against my chest. And what I do find interesting is how the fake orgasms, you never hear men faking orgasms. And that's another thing. I was not planning to go here, but when we were talking about pleasure, women do that because we think that our own pleasure is not important and that we just have to please.
It's got to be a performance.
Yeah,
if we've not delivered that part of it, we've failed. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for going there, Cath. Thank you. So in answer to your delicious question, pleasure features all day, every day in my world. And it is manifested in the kindest, most encouraging, tender self-talk. I'm really nice to myself, Cath. I call myself sweetie, honey, chicken, bunny. You'll see it from my Instagram posts. The way that I speak on Instagram is how I speak to myself, and I want to model that. Yes. Because that's the thing that brings self-compassion to every moment. So I am tender with myself in what I say to myself. I don't know if you've noticed that I do this a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do that too.
I do this all day, every day, because I want my body to know where it is in space so that my nervous system can calm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to remind myself that I'm deserving of this same beautiful love and care that I'm so expert in giving everyone else. I want some of that to flow inwards. So this gesture reminds me of I can be my own safe place too, but I'm deserving of receipt of that same love and care. So this is not just about filling your own cup. I want women to know that it's okay. Having spent all day filling everyone else's cup, it's all right for someone to top you up as well. It's okay to receive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's really, really, really important. And I think that the thing about receiving, there's vulnerability inherent in receiving, and many of us have grown up being hyper independent for various reasons from our own childhoods, and so giving, there's a measure of control in giving. And it makes us feel good. And receiving is so vulnerable sometimes that we might push it away. How did you kind of make that transition to allowing yourself to receive?
What a beautiful question. I think a lot of it is tied up in both my grief journey and my motherhood journey, which coincided. So I've written 10 books about self-care. I thought that my career was all about self-care. And that was the lesson that I learned when I had Charlotte 15 years ago, and when my dad had motor neurone disease that wasn't diagnosed in his lifetime, but he was hospitalized on a ventilator.
I'm so sorry. I mean, honestly, I just really want.
It was.
And it's just really shit.
But thank you for not saying at least at any point. Thank you.
Oh
for not
my
doing,
God!
You know what? Like
there are no at least.
We're so weird to what's the silver lining here? We've got to find hard and work hard to find. No, can we just say, I'm so sorry that was shit.
Yes.
I'm so sorry it had to be so strong. Thank you, Cath. That's beautiful.
Can I give you one? Before you answer this question, I want to say one thing. Cheryl Strayed says about the death of her mother. She says there are some things that will always be wrong, just wrong. And that's something I want to offer you about your dad's death, because it will just always be wrong. And if anyone says anything, I would want to throw like a little rock at their head, basically. Yep. I have that feeling when people. Anyway, tell us back to the grief and motherhood.
It really. The lesson that I took from it at that time was that I had to get really skilled in nourishing myself, because I learned firsthand that my depletion served no one and my replenishment served everyone, and that there was no point in me denying myself. So this was very much about my relationship with myself. And, up until that point, I had a great relationship with myself. I was always personal trainer, yoga teacher, psychologist, pinnacle of health, lots of nourishing practices in my day. But what happened was, in that life experience, all the things that I would ordinarily do to nourish myself became completely inaccessible, because I didn't have the personal freedom, the space, the time, the energy, the funds to do any of that stuff. And it all fell away. And it was just like, what the hell? It was absolutely, the description I give is energetic bankruptcy. I was absolutely knackered. So that season of my life became around, I need to be much more resourceful here. How can I replenish myself in ways that don't take a lot of time and energy? So that's where this sort of, desire to nurture self came from. But really, I think it's with the advent of perimenopause. And actually, with the benefit of hindsight, I realized that it wasn't just about nourishing self. And I didn't get through that period just by taking care of myself. I got through that period with the love and support of my husband, with the love and support of my mum and my dad, to the extent that he could still care for me in that state. I got through it because took me a year to find them, but I had a great therapist. Yeah. So my recovery was success in recovery was contingent upon allowing myself to receive.
Yes.
But I think it was only in that sort of more the perimenopause experience that I realized, I am so fed up with caring for self, caring for everyone else, and having my needs not met by others. So it was really it's more recently that I've been able to even just have the language. 15 years ago, I hadn't heard of the term self-care. Now we all know it. More recently, I've only just learned of the phrase self-advocacy. And self-advocacy is how we represent ourselves, how we voice our needs, our feelings and opinions, and how we allow ourselves to take center stage. This is new. So that's where I'm at. That's where this lesson is at currently, where I'm learning, if I want to raise compassionate, resilient kids, I don't want to be the selfless mom, because how on earth will they learn that other people have needs with it if I present as a as a machine that doesn't have feelings or needs. I don't want that for my kids, and I deserve better. And in this stage of life, I've got to a point where I can't keep giving and keep going like I have previously. I don't have the capacity. And you know what? That's fine, because it's not humanly possible to meet the demands of life as we've had it served up to us. Keeping all the people happy all the time. So I'm quite happy to give myself permission to fail at what's humanly impossible. And that's where this whole message around please allow yourself to receive, because it's not just for your health. You actually need it for the health and well-being of your relationships.
Yes. So, and I think allowing ourselves to receive, and often we might have to ask for that first. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. People aren't good mind readers.
No, exactly. And also, if we're not used to, they're not good mind readers, and it's okay to ask.
It is okay.
It's really.
This is the thing, but we are so cut off. We walk around like a head on legs. Half of us aren't even aware of our needs.
Yes, absolutely.
We can't speak our needs until we've checked back in. So this is the work. The work is to come home to self, so that we can articulate our needs, and other people will have a hope in hell of being able to meet them.
Yeah. And I think this is exactly what we're busy with. The whole of Grow Yourself Up is about coming back into contact with our needs, because when we've had childhood trauma, we've had to, by necessity, cut off from our needs. And part of coming back into contact with ourselves is becoming more embodied, because, as you said, when we're disembodied and cut off, then we can treat ourselves like a machine, because we completely dissociated and disconnected from what's going on. And then suddenly we get hit with chronic pain or frozen shoulder, or, I've got some issues with my shoulder. There's or an autoimmune condition or fibromyalgia, or that is chronic pain, or, all of these things, rheumatoid arthritis. And suddenly we're like, okay, this is a big call from my body.
Pay attention now. My body's calling time. This is what I experienced in perimenopause. Arthritis in my foot, limited mobility in my shoulder, early stage gum disease. I see all these fitness professionals saying, all you've got to do is move well and, you protect. I have moved my entire life long.
Yeah.
I have invested in this thing. No one is immune. Yes, move. I'm not saying don't move, but I'm saying there's no magic bullet. And please, if anyone gets to this season of life and starting to feel like, well, it's my fault, it's not, darling. There's all sorts of pressures. There's all sorts of demands.
And there's so many strands to this. And the thing about telling it ourselves that it's our fault, that's another sign of danger for our nervous system. And that's why we need that softness. We need that endless kindness. I love your words that you call yourself. I call myself a blessed angel. Or a puppet, because my mother used to say puppet.
I love that. I love that. And Cath, you talked about, the people who have experienced trauma. I look at how we rear children. Now, the fact is, even if you can look back at your childhood and say that it was a normal, happy childhood, just look at how we conceptualize what a good child is, a good baby is. Even the fact that we think of a bad baby. I mean, how toxic is that? The notion of a bad baby. But we've been reared to believe that our self-worth is hinging upon how convenient we are, how obedient, how compliant, how little we need others, how little we trouble others, how little sound we make. How can any human being, having been reared in that way, feel comfortable saying, this is me, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is how I feel? Right?
Exactly. No, it's impossible. And I think that, absolutely. The feeding, and I really think I kind of have really looked at this from a kind of a pattern point of view, that if we think about many of our parents, even ones from Australia and South Africa, impacted by the Second World War massively, lots of deprivation, lots of poverty, lots of fear and anxiety, and a lot of like PTSD. And then add on all those things like stuff that came out in the 50s and 60s around how to tend to a baby. And it's basically like impose a feeding routine, impose a sleeping routine, and basically if they don't fit into that, leave them.
Let them cry it out. Put them out in the garden. Let them holler it out.
Exactly. Which is basically, that's emotional neglect. But we've really normalized that, I think, in the society. And now we're having a kind of a revolution against that. But we have to kind of look at lots of well-intentioned parents might have parented in a very neglectful way.
Yes.
And so we don't have to kind of beat up on parents. Like, everyone has got a completely different story about their parents. So I don't want to make any kind of overgeneralizations, but you can really be loving of your parents and notice that you might not have got what you need.
Absolutely.
I think that those two can exist side by side. And now this is a wonderful time to go into your forthcoming book. Tell us about it. It's got a fantastic title. Tell us about How to Be Selfish.
So I need everyone to just stick with me here, okay? This book is called How to Be Selfish, right? It's not called How to Be More Selfish. It's How to Be Selfish. It's written for people who couldn't be selfish if they tried.
Yeah.
And I want to be completely transparent here. If I called this book How to Advocate for Yourself, no one would look at it because no one knows what self-advocacy is. Everyone is very aware of the word selfish. I want people to read this book, so the title is there to grab your attention. But it's written for people who couldn't be selfish if they tried. This is not about being a selfish asshole. This is about learning how to advocate for yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
This is about reclaiming the right to personhood. It's reclaiming the right to have self. So it could be seen as how to be selfish. Yes? It's reclaiming the right to feel, reclaiming the right to have needs, and reclaiming the right to be able to speak of those things so that we can also receive. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And it's really a pulling back of people pleasing as well. You've got some lovely...
I want it to be an antidote to people pleasing, hyper-dependence, hyper-responsibility, martyrdom, perfectionism, feeling invisible. Because there are so many women feeling like, I'm only worthwhile, I'm only worthy while I'm servicing someone. I'm only a worthwhile human being if I'm needed. Yeah. I want people
if I'm
to
putting
feel
on
treasured.
a fantastic Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want people to feel treasured for who they are, not what they've facilitated in others. And for so many people, I invite you, when is it that you feel selfish? Yeah? When you're resting, when you're voicing an opinion, when you say no, when you alter plans, when you voice a preference, when you voice none of these things. If we actually observed another human being doing those things, we would probably attribute that to courage, being forthright, being principled, being boundaried.
If it was a man, we'd attribute that.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they're good at managing their energy and their time. We'd applaud them. And yet we look at these behaviours and we deem them as selfish in ourselves. So it's helping women, this written for women, to do these things that make them think, oh God, this is so selfish, when it's not. That's what this book is about.
Yeah. And it's really about, because what you're talking about is if we have to learn to have boundaries so that we know, when you said it's a welcoming back to personhood, it's the body boundary of this is me.
Yeah.
I'm just responsible for me. And I'm allowed to say, I can't come to that dinner, or no, I don't like that food you're going to offer me, or something, because women are conditioned essentially to be codependent and to really, just always be offering. Tell us now, the subtitle is about the 7 steps to being selfish, and there's lovely practices from all the different things you've trained in. Tell us maybe about a couple of the steps.
So I wanted this subtitle to be the 7 steps to taking back your peace and your power.
Yeah.
But that was too long. So we had to go with to taking back your power. But this is also about taking back your peace. This is really, really important. And for us to be able to take back our power, we need to feel safe to do that. So I created the 7 steps as a scaffolding of skills that would help people to feel safe and confident to be able to, one, recognize their needs, but then also to be able to articulate them. And that takes quite some learning. So there are 7 steps that we sequentially work our way through, and it is a scaffolding of skills. So we might just go through the first 3, just so people have an idea of how this book can prepare them to do these things that are, let's be honest, terrifying. It is terrifying to give voice. It is terrifying to make ourselves vulnerable to potential disappointment.
Yeah.
We really do need to get our nervous system into a state that will allow us to even open our mouths.
Yeah.
Okay. So step one, these are things that we can reclaim. We've got step one is I take back my mind. I'm reclaiming my mind. And the necessary part of this step is holding up to the light all of these untruths that we've taken on.
Yeah.
Because until we question these self-limiting beliefs, we'll never give ourselves permission to do anything differently. So step one is about reclaiming the mind.
Can you give us an example of one of those self-limiting? Like, what's your favorite one of those?
I can't be selfish. I can't prioritize self. Yeah, I mustn't be selfish. I mustn't need others. I mustn't lean on others.
Yeah.
I must be self-sufficient. We could sit here
So if you're having like a really tricky day, you're allowed to phone your friend, or you're allowed to say, please come over and come and have lunch with me.
I can't rest.
Come to town.
No, you can sit for 5 minutes and do nothing. You can. We've got to hold. So step one is holding up these self-limiting beliefs and seeing through. Part of this is teasing apart the difference between thoughts and self-talk. And I think this is a really important part, because thoughts come to us. You don't choose your thoughts. If you don't choose your thoughts, you don't have control over them. So part of this step is understanding that thought will come to you of, I can't rest, I can't be selfish. But actually, we don't have to invest our identity in that thought. We don't have to allow that thought to then predict what we do. Thoughts are not facts necessarily. They're not predictions. They're not prophecies. We get to choose. Self-talk, you do have influence over that. And I want everyone to understand that shitty, punitive, judgmental self-talk is self-harm. And we have to make the decision that we are just not going to do that anymore. You don't choose the first thought. That might be a shitty thought. And I want you to go, oh, there you are. I see you. But that's not me. I can choose to respond lovingly to that thought with something supportive. So step one is about managing our mind. And I hope that helps. It's a fundamental starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, really fundamental, because it's even things like lots of people have this busyness as a badge of honor, and it's, I'm too busy to rest. And it's like, well, in 2 years' time, your body's going to call you with an autoimmune condition or something. So rest now.
Yes.
And not in a punitive way do I mean that, but we kind of have to learn that we're not machines that burn out. We don't have to keep on going through cycles of burnout,
This is listening and learning.
Yeah.
So step one is getting the mind on side and understanding where our sphere of influence lies. Step two, this is about reclaiming my attention, reclaiming our senses.
Yes.
So this is all about taking an inventory of all of the different places that dissipate your energy and your attention, and becoming a little bit more mindful about that. It's about getting you back in the driver's seat. And I started with senses because if we want to come home to self, if we want to feel safe to advocate for ourselves, we've got to come home to the body. But to come home to the body, we've got to use the senses. So step two is reclaiming the senses. And then step three is then reclaiming the body, which is a precursor to feeling safe to be able to give voice. And then should we just take a quick top line look at the other steps, just
Absolutely.
So we know where we're going? So we've got reclaim the mind, reclaim your attention, your senses. I take back my body. I love that chapter. There's so much juice in that chapter. Then we've got I reclaim my right to feel.
Yeah.
And then it's I know myself. It's about boundaries with self. And then it's boundaries with others. So they're the 7 steps. So you can see how there's the building blocks to those skills. But Cath, I think we need a practice to bring all of this stuff together. Now, I notice you've got a glass of water.
Yes.
Yeah, we need that. So for anyone that's listening, if you can, pause.
And there's also a video. Yeah.
Get yourself a little glass of water, or a glass of whatever it is cup of tea, whatever it is that floats your boat. Okay. This is something that we do hundreds of times a day. So for people that are like, I haven't got time for this stuff, I don't know how to do this stuff, I forget this stuff, this is how you do it. Pair it with drinking. We are going to very tenderly place a hand on our heart. And with this gesture, there's an invitation to, we're going to check in. We're going to come home to self. We're also reminding ourselves with this gesture that we are deserving of kindness too. And this whole journey to being a little bit more selfish, this is not about robbing or depriving others of our love and care. This is about expanding our kindness and our generosity and our love to also include ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's no transgression of values here. This is a more authentic expression of them. And I hope people can feel proud of that. But we're allowing that to also include ourselves. And I hope that this feels nice. This little hug here at our heart. Now we're going to take a little sip of water while we've got the hand on heart. And did you notice that placing the hand on the heart and taking a sip, it changes the sensory experience of drinking?
Yes, well, I can feel it much more. I mean, I can feel it.
I love that. That's exactly it. You can feel it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it heightens our awareness of our senses. I can feel that I'm holding something solid. This is heavy. I can feel the temperature of it in my hand.
Yes.
I can feel the temperature of the liquid in my mouth. I can taste it. I can feel it as I swallow it. And I can also feel the rejuvenation it's bringing me. I feel juicier as a result. I've noticed all of this just by placing my hand on my heart. But that's not it. We're not finished yet. That's a really powerful starting point. Let's take one more little sip. I'd like to couple this ritual with 2 gentle questions. As you take a sip, I want you to say to yourself, sweetheart, where am I at? What's happening right now? What's going on? Yeah?
Yeah.
Check in with your body. Check in with your heart. Check in with your head. No character assassinations needed. We're just observing what's happening, what's going on right now. And then ask yourself, what do I need?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the ritual. But the ritual doesn't finish there. The ritual is then completed by having observed where you're at and thought about what you need. The ritual is complete by going and doing something nourishing. Yeah. Go and do something that tends to self, that heals your relationship with self.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is how we bring it to life. Was that nice, Cath? Did it feel
Yeah,
good?
that was really lovely.
Yeah.
And I could feel my water going down, like underneath my hand. And I think that we really have to, particularly when we're coming out of like a functional freeze or being chronically shut down, and we kind of go between being frozen and doing hectic amounts of work. These type of practices are like little islands of safety in our day. And I would always say that we must actually set an alarm. Like I sometimes say to clients, set an alarm every 60 minutes to check in with yourself, because otherwise, so many people maybe sit all day at their computer and hardly drink, hardly eat, have lunch at 4 p.m. or something. And we need these reminders. So that's such a lovely way to kind of come back to self and connect with the body in a way that's not, because coming back into the body is not an insignificant task.
No.
For if you've been disembodied, it's really can be so scary.
Yes.
Really,
And
really
so
scary.
we need the anchors. We do. Yeah. And we can just do it slowly. We can take our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of this, I think, is so important to acknowledge that we can't do this quickly. Do you know what I mean? Because all of us have brought that frantic. I know I have had frantic doing energy in my life, and we don't kind of repattern in a frantic way.
And Cath, you will know too, sometimes we need to do this in partnership with another human being that can lend us their calm, abiding center that will give you the container to being able to bear witness. And sometimes we need to be witnessed, especially where there's a chronic lack of that validation, acceptance, witnessing. We need to be witnessed by another human being.
Yeah.
So our work is really important, isn't it, Cath? And I love the opportunity to work one-to-one with people. It's an incredible privilege, and there's nothing wrong if you need that. Yeah. I've needed that.
Yeah.
It's a human need. We all need it.
Yeah. I'm glad we can really acknowledge that, because I can't bear it when there's like a power dynamic, or people think if therapists and coaches are really like fixed. Really, I often think to myself, why do you think we came into this work? Anyway. So tell us, I'm looking here at I made some little notes. Tell us about, so this is a beautiful title. Tell us about some of the personal stuff that led you to this title, because there must have been a part of you who felt you were selfish for looking after your needs. How did you kind of come to kind of, absolutely not, I'm not selfish?
Yeah, no, this has been a real reckoning. And as a nurturer, as a healer, I see myself as someone who facilitates other people's healing of their relationship with self. I've really grappled with, if you can be a safe place, if you can bear witness to the feelings of others, if you can comfort others, so surely you should be doing that left, right, and center. And I do that left, right, and center. But it really came to me when I was coming round from the general anesthetic, having had surgery on my foot. I'm in this ward. There are 6 other beds. I've literally just opened my eyes after having surgery. And there's a partner of another patient. The bed is empty. She's obviously off having her operation. And upon seeing my eyes open, her partner thought, oh, I'll have a chat with her. And he divulged all sorts of stuff. And I ended up thinking, it took me a couple of minutes with all of this stuff just washing over me to then say, I'm sure that your partner will be back soon. She's in excellent hands. And I'm sorry that this is a challenging wait. I need to rest now. So excuse me, but I'm just going to lie here in silence. And that was one of the first times in my life where I was like, do you know what? Just because I can hold space for someone doesn't mean I should.
Exactly.
Yeah? Fuck being selfless. Like that was that was the moment where I'm like, yeah, this feels really selfish, but fuck it. Because
no, it doesn't.
I need to heal here.
So rude of that person to come over.
I know. He was in need. But you know what? Yeah, he was in need. But actually, I had needs too. And I needed to replenish myself so I could go home and do my mothering, so that I could pitch up and do my counseling tomorrow. So it was like self-preservation. But this is a constant work in progress. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm going to put my hand up and say, I'm going to be working on this for the rest of my life. And that's all right. But I'm getting much better at it.
But I think that it is because, we're talking about healing patterns from many generations here. And we may have had parents who really interrupted those patterns for us, and some of us didn't get that. And it is it's something about holding that this is really complicated. It's embedded in our nervous system, these patterns. They are not just a hop, skip, and a jump, and then suddenly you don't do this anymore. And
that's so important, Cath. That's it. Like, selflessness is not the virtue that we think it is. It's a coping mechanism. So it's not about, just stop being selfless. I mean, that would be like saying to someone who's anxious, well, just relax. So I'm not saying for anyone that's had a history of people pleasing, you don't just, we'll be okay with disappointing people, or people who are phobic of leaning on it. We'll just, get vulnerable and make requests. It's not about that, but it is, the whole book is about creating alternative coping mechanisms so that we can give ourselves permission to think, feel, and choose differently. But we need to take our time with this work, don't we, Cath?
Absolutely. And I think that I really want to highlight for people who want to buy that, there's some really practical stuff specifically around people pleasing, where you work through different scenarios. And I think that's really helpful for people to see.
Yes.
The practicalities of things.
Yes. Now we break it down. There's step by step, and it's full of little love notes and little how-to guides. I want to make this really simple and doable, and we do it together.
Yeah. And I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to ask you 2 more questions. Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite bits in the book that you're kind of the most proud of?
100%. My favorite bit is taking back our body for us. And I can't wait to hear how people receive that. There are some really fiery, pithy words in there. And just the practices. I love hearing how the practices are transforming people's relationship with self.
Yeah. Wonderful. And if someone is listening and the title itself makes them actually feel scared, what would you say to them? Because this is going to be lots of mums listening, lots of parents, and lots of people who will feel scared by that.
So this is not about being selfish. This is about how you can advocate for yourself so that you can be seen, heard, understood, and known, and so that you can also have your needs met. And this is how we build healthy, reciprocal, authentic relationships. We need it for the health of our relationships as much as we need it for our health.
Absolutely. And many of us have not learned about reciprocity in relationships because we've just learned to serve in our family of origin. So that itself is a big shift. So don't be surprised if it feels uncomfortable. I want to say that to the listeners.
But it's time for us to start living like we matter too. That's it, Cath.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Now, Suzy, tell us when it will be released. Tell us about how people can work with you. Tell us about any offerings that you might have that they can connect with you on or come and buy from you.
Amazing. So the book is out 20th of November and it is widely available. So it doesn't have to be from Amazon. If you like to buy it from your local bookshop, go and ask them to order it in.
Yes. And your libraries.
Yes. And I've got all the links on my Amazon bio and on my Instagram bio. And I'm available for one-to-one. So if there's anything that you think, gosh, I'd really like to work that through, we can do it together. And that would be an absolute honor.
And do you work internationally?
I do. Yes. A lot of my work is over Zoom. So it makes the world a very small place. We can do that.
Okay. Wonderful. And they can connect with you on Instagram at Suzy Reading.
Drop me a line. Yeah, on Instagram.
Okay. This has been really wonderful, Suzy.
It's been delicious, Cath. Thank you.
Really, really wonderful. Delicious and juicy. Thank you so, so much. I've really enjoyed this and can't wait to see the book in print.
Thank you, my darling.